Woo! We're here. We're live. Hello, everybody out there on the interwebs. We can never tell who's exactly watching because it doesn't play nice when you stream to multiple platforms. But just a shout out that Susie and Gina are both under the weather. And for different reasons, poor Gina got stung on the face by a yellow jacket.
Yeah.
And it is still huge. Like her face is still, yeah, she's really allergic to them. I
So
think that
owie.
was like Saturday. I think it happened Saturday morning.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's way
Yeah,
too long.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So I know she actually did go to the doctor today, and she's on antibiotics and everything else to help her get better. And then Susie's got the flu. So Kenna and I are going to talk about all kinds of weirdness tonight. So yeah, I know I hate those. And then Monday night I got stung. So it's just been, I hate them. They're just like, was it Mad Max? But Mud Lover, you guys posted something about flying demons or something. Yeah, that's what they are. Hello,
yeah.
Rose. So again, no live readings tonight. We really apologize, but they're both just under the weather, and so we are going to power through with paranormal topics.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're kind of like, this is like what, episode 2 of like an oceanic series. I really like the suggestion someone made last week of like loose lips sink ships.
Oh,
Love that.
mm,
You know, it kind of ties into like the hush hush of like conspiracy theories and like paranormal and also the oceanic. So
yeah.
I think we're gonna go with that. We don't have to shorten it or anything. Like, what is that? LLSS. We'll see.
There you go.
We're gonna be fast and loose and have fun, but
Nice.
we're gonna continue, and we're gonna talk about cultural, religious lore of sirens slash mermaids, but mostly the lore around the sirens specifically.
Nice.
Yes. So, uh, so basically, people assume a lot of the times that sirens and mermaids are like similar or LLSS exactly. Like they assume they're about the same thing, but like I've heard people a few different opinions say that like sirens are completely different than mermaids, or it's just like different interpretations culturally of like the same thing. Um, but most of like the legends, stories, references I'm going to refer to this creature as a siren specifically. So we're going to refer to them as sirens for the most part, unless it specifically says otherwise, like in my research. Um, we'll kind of go through and talk about like the religious aspects of it first. So there's a few different religions that have lore, have stories, lessons, whatever you want to refer to it as like a siren. So the first one, we cover quite a few different legends or cryptids like that are associated like with the Bible. And this one actually does refer to a topic that we've covered before, actually a couple times. So in the book of Enoch, or Enoch, depending on how you would pronounce it. So sirens are mentioned. So it's First Enoch, chapter 19, verse 2. They say, the women of the angels who went astray will become sirens. And it goes more into detail saying that as a consequence for the women who procreated with fallen angels, they were then turned into sirens for birthing like the Nephilim, which we had discussed before as being visually compared to like the red-haired giants, the Sitka or the red-haired giants of Afghanistan, being, they have the same physical description as like the Nephilim. I mean, there are other descriptions of like chimera type things where it's like half man, half human. Yeah, so David, that's a really good point. It's a very common point. So sailors, pirates, just kind of nautical faring type men and women do all have some sort of siren or mermaid story, whether or not it's benevolent or malevolent, whether it's someone luring one in to drown them, or it's some lust or unrequited love or requited love. So there's a lot of
I did
stories
not
there.
realize there was a tie between the siren and the Nephilim.
Yeah. Yeah. So it does specifically, it says siren in the Bible. So there's that tie as far as like Christianity. It's interesting because some people, you know, they take like religious texts and they come at it from a spiritual point of view. They don't look at it as like historical. Which, you know, it could be. And like some people do tie both things together. So if you think about the contemporary or, you know, uncontemporary legends or encounters, like the red-haired giants of Afghanistan was in like the past 20 years. And that's very contemporary, like compared to biblical things, or even the Paiute Indians and the red-haired giants.
Technically, they are both, he said. Huh, interesting.
Right. Yeah. And like there's a few people I found less references saying like they're different things, but across the board it's mostly that they're like the same. They're essentially the same. You know, people are individuals. You kind of have to assume spirits, cryptids, creatures are individuals as well. There can be, like when we discussed the Thunderbird, half of the cultures considered this a vengeful spirit, and the other half considered it a benevolent spirit of justice. And so there are different interpretations, I'm sure, based on what your own beliefs are, your own culture is, and also how your own behavior could be. So it's kind of interesting to think about on whether or not a spirit or cryptid is considered like fearful, if you're fearful of it, or if it's an evil type spirit, or if it is a all-powerful, kind, benevolent spirit. So it's kind of interesting to make that comparison. But that's just like that tie to the Nephilim. We seem to make those ties a lot in like these discussions. That's just Christianity. There's other religions that also like mention sirens or siren type creatures as well. So they are mentioned in Hinduism as well. I hope I don't butcher the name. So Matsya Kanyas is what it's called. And it's basically associated with like the god of the ocean, which is named like Varuna. And so it's essentially just like a water goddess or a water creature that's like tied to like the god of the ocean. Yeah, so that's Hinduism. And then also Buddhism, Apsaras is a celestial dancer and seductress, but also of the ocean. So that's kind of more towards that siren luring men into the sea kind of, but you know, celestial implies like purity or benevolence. So different interpretations, right?
Yeah. I haven't heard of some of this, so this is really interesting.
Yeah, I kind of had to do a bit of a deep dive. It really started off, there's so much lore around sirens tied to like the Caribbean, Jamaican, Haitian, especially Haitian. They grow up hearing these stories, and they have relatives that all have like a lot of relatives, a lot of like people that they know, or they themselves have had a story or an encounter with what they would interpret to be a siren. I found quite a few actually. I didn't save them all. I did save a couple because there were a lot. It's very, very much ingrained in their culture. So something I thought was interesting. It's another one of those rules that they use or lessons that they use to tie like a lesson in for like children. So I found that the Haitian people believe that like you shouldn't like go out and be in the water alone at night because children. And a lot of like these lessons, and many that we've already covered like in the past, like since like I've done this, I've seen so many references that warn children not to go in the woods at night alone, not to go like into the ocean alone, into the desert. Doesn't really matter. Like children, they warn children, don't go anywhere out by yourself at night. And you know, at first I was thinking that this was a lesson. You teach your children, and that's kind of more the logical side of me that was like initially thinking that maybe the non-conspiracy side of me that was like, yeah, you tell your children these stories so they don't wander off in the woods. But I saw a video the other day and it really made me think. So it was a doe and her fawn, and a bear came up, and the fawn did not survive, unfortunately. But that's the circle of life. And it made me think that in every like environment, every wild animal, every predator will always go after the fawn first, always go after the baby first.
Mhm.
And so imagining that these creatures that are succumbing to their base instincts are predatory, imagining or assuming that they're predatory, why would they not go after the children? Why would they not go after the most vulnerable of our species as well? Because that's how predators are. They're going to go after the fawn. They're going to go after the smallest, easiest, tenderest target, you know? Um,
That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought of that.
right. And I hadn't either until today. And I was like, well, because I
Yeah.
thought that thing yesterday, or maybe early even this morning. Timelines are a blur to me, unfortunately. But I made a connection. I was like, is it because these cryptids are predators? David, I try to avidly avoid politics. I mean, but if you want to get into like the Illuminati and stuff like that, like message me later. um, anyways, hey, no worries. We can talk about anything. No judgment here. Not allowed. But yeah, no, I thought that was kind of an interesting like point that I had never thought of before. Because you make those ties like with lessons, because like if you've ever had like a younger sibling or you've taught children, like like you'll tell them whatever so that they don't go and do something dumb, because kids are kind of dumb.
Yeah,
I
very
Kids are
dumb.
wonderful and pure, and they're kind of dumb.
I'm amazed I lived through my childhood. So, yes, exactly.
Same, same.
So,
Honestly, like
yeah.
children are innocent and ignorant, and it's a tie. It's same. So the stories, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I've told some stories to like my kids and my little siblings, like whatever. If it freaks them out a little bit, cool. At least they're staying out of the road. But
Yeah,
yeah,
fascinating stuff though, Mad Max. Some adults are dumb as well. A lot.
yeah,
A
yes.
lot.
I mean, it's okay to be dumb as long as you're willing to learn, new things. When you stop learning, that's where it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll continue on here. So I do have, this is where I have to go to my phone because unfortunately my printer is broken. It stopped working. I like to print the stories. So I have to go to my notes. There is a Haitian mermaid, as they specifically reference it, which is considered like an ocean queen. This is the only thing that I found specific to mermaids. Says Haitian mermaids are connected to one specific female Haitian water spirit called La Siren, or there's a few different ways to say it. People say like La Sirene. It sounds like Spanish a little bit. And so, I mean, it's all kind of tied together. There's the Spaniards and the slave trade and all kinds of mixed cultures there. So there's a few different interpretations of the way you say it, but La Sirene or La Sirene is kind of like the most common. Um, but it's like the queen of the ocean and like basically the maritime version of the spirit of like love and beauty. And that's kind of like that positive correlation to mermaids as opposed to sirens. But there is, let me see if I can find it. I'll have to look at my notes here. So there is a couple stories as far as like La Seren, where it does talk about like one story I remember in particular was a woman and she was talking about her uncle, essentially. So this uncle was born as, like, there's a couple different like accounts of the story, where either they are like a fraternal twin or they look very similar to like a sibling, essentially. And the boy, this uncle, he wanted to go and do something, and mother said no. And so he disguised himself like his sister because they looked so much alike, and he left anyways. And basically, he was taken. He disappeared. He was gone for years, many years. And it was like 7 years later after he had disappeared that he had come back. And he all of a sudden had these like healing powers. He was like a shaman type to his village, to his family when he had returned. And he was not allowed to speak of where he was, or the encounters that he had, but he all of a sudden had these insane healing abilities, and it was commonly like believed that he was taken in by mer people, mer spirits, sirens, essentially, and given these abilities or taught these abilities over the years that he was gone. But he was gone. He was in the ocean. Like, he was gone and came back with mystical abilities. And this one accounting had been interpreted a couple different ways, but it's always referred to as the uncle. So kind of an interesting little story. And that one's specifically Haitian. They do have kind of like a voodoo type culture, and they kind of reference it as like voodoo. It's spelled differently than you would see in like New Orleans.
Right.
But, it's a type of voodoo, essentially. But in other cultures, so the Inuit actually have their own version of siren as well. So this one is more commonly seen, Alaska. They generally refer to it as like the Alaskan mermaid, but it's seen in the northern parts of the Americas. Hoodoo. Hoodoo, voodoo. It's like VUD.
Oh, you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different spelling than you see in
Yeah.
Louisiana, New Orleans, whatever, wherever, Alabama, everywhere. I think I can't remember what the difference between hoodoo and voodoo is. Whole other discussion.
We actually did a podcast on that about a year and a half ago, and I'm trying to remember, but I think one of them come from Africa, and
Probably
maybe
the
the
hoodoo.
voodoo came from Africa. It's actually probably was established in Africa, and then kind of branched out. Haitians actually were forbidden to practice voodoo for decades, but they did it secretly, and then they brought it over to New Orleans, and yeah, I mean, it's a religion like any other religion. It just has its light and its dark all to itself,
Right. And I mean, well, a lot of cultures in the Caribbean, in Central America, Southern America, really even like if you think about like really far, like the slave trade and stuff like that, there's so many cultures that have those ties to African cultures. They keep something from whatever part they're from, and they integrate it into the other cultures that they become a part of.
Sure.
Like reference, like I'm Costa Rican, and Costa Ricans are basically 50% indigenous, local cultures, local Aztec or Incan type civilization, and like half Spaniard because they conquered us, So it's just those mixing of cultures and those mixing of stories that really make these different like cryptids and these different legends kind of like cemented in, because those stories like carry from different cultures, different religions, different peoples, all the way down and continue on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting to think about. That's a whole other thing, but it's really cool because it does kind of connect us all in a way.
Yeah, it does.
Which is always great. It's always so great. But anyway, it's the Inuit. We're going to kind of talk about them. So they have their own story, and it's around a woman named Sedna. But they also refer to like the creatures like Sedna as well. So she's like a young Inuit girl, and she doesn't want to get married, or she does want to get married, but she's very, very particular, and her father wants her to get married. Uh, so she does accept a suitor eventually, and he's said to be like this great warrior. He's very strong. He's like able to protect her. And so she leaves with him. They go off, they get married, and it turns out that he's not who he says to be. He does take her out to the ocean, but he's said to be like this bird man or this bird creature. Uh, and she ended up like starving, essentially. The stories say that she's starving because this bird creature is unable to provide for her. He just selfishly wanted her for himself. Uh, but her father, who was desperate to marry her off, um, heard of her troubles and basically found her in the ocean where she was with her birdman husband, and like slayed the husband, slayed the birdman. But there were more of these creatures, these bird-like creatures, and they had swarmed this ship or this vessel that they were on. Um, and some people say it's like an island as well. So some stories I've heard that it was a ship, and other stories I heard that it was an island. But there was essentially more bird-like creatures or bird men, and they chased after them because this one was killed. Uh, so basically, so frightened, Sedna's father throws her overboard to steady the boat as they were fleeing. But Sedna manages to cling onto the edge. Her father then cuts each of the joints of her fingers individually to release her into the sea. As her joints, I know, it's pretty brutal. And a lot of these stories are brutal. Things are only like sugar coated nowadays. So
Yeah.
we're used to the happy, happy. And then you hear, stuff from way back when. And it's pretty dark.
Yeah.
It's like the Grim Tales.
I know. We just did a podcast on that one a couple of weeks ago. So spooky.
They are, really. It's horrifying.
They are.
Yeah, really. It's kind of crazy. We need to stop sugarcoating stuff. People can take it. It's fine.
I know.
So essentially, he cuts her fingers off at the joint so that she falls into the ocean. And her joints fall into the ocean as well, and they become like sea creatures. So it says they become, her top joints become seals, middle joints turn into walruses, and end joints turn into whales. Sedna herself sinks to the bottom of the sea, where she becomes mother to all sea animals. She lives on as the benevolent spirit of the sea.
Wow. I mean, that's kind of beautiful, but still.
It is. It does end up being a beautiful story. I did hear or read one other story where it says she becomes more like a siren type creature or mother to siren type creatures instead of being like mother of like what you would consider normal sea creatures, seals and whales and stuff. But it's kind of, she becomes like of like the ocean, which I think is pretty cool. So that was a nice one to read. And then, okay, so this one, I found a couple like firsthand accounts or firsthand stories of people, alive today that have encountered what they would interpret to be as sirens. And so this one, this person was essentially vacationing with their family, and they were in Thailand, and they were on the beach. It was like this person and their brother, and they were out in the water, and like this is kind of where that story like continues off of. It says, suddenly our dad called out for us. Someone in our group saw a small ship, and everyone was gathering around to see it. My brother swam over there, but for some reason I stayed put and kept watching the different fish that were swimming so closely to me, because they're essentially like above a reef. It was beautiful. They were checking stuff out. They were over a reef. It says, then something caught my attention. There seemed to be smaller caves underwater by the shore, and I saw something slowly coming out. It was similar to a human head. Facing down towards the bottom of the ocean, I completely froze and kept staring. The person, in quotations, kind of floated out of the cave, never facing up towards the surface. And it very slowly. Nothing of this person that I could see was moving. By this point, I could see the back of the head and most of the back. The person had really sparse black hair slicked down to the scalp. Their skin looked gray and the spine was extremely pronounced. I completely froze up. I couldn't breathe or move. Time felt like it was standing still. The person kept floating out of the cave, and that's when I started seeing its tail. The tail was dark gray and looked like a stereotypical mermaid tail. I blinked multiple times, convinced I was hallucinating, but I kept seeing it. I never believed in the supernatural, but this thing was only a few meters below me, and I could see it so clearly. I felt a sense of danger. I know, right? It's like, and they're not from the US because they mentioned meters specifically. But
they're all wrong. It's feet. What can I say?
It's feet. Yeah, they're all wrong.
You have to be different.
We're right.
Yes, we're correct.
Yes. So it was a few meters below. Felt a sense of danger. I knew that I wasn't supposed to be seeing this, and I was terrified that it would see me and attack me. But the thing never once faced up. Once it was out, it swayed to the side and kept a close distance to the island and disappeared into another cave.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what on earth could that be? I wonder, do they have manatees down there?
I don't know, because they specifically mentioned like the spine. And I'm trying to think.
Manatees you're not going to see a spine on a manatee. They're pretty heavy.
Right, and like there's like spiny type fish, but if like they're assuming this thing is like a mermaid, you'd have to think this thing is like 6 feet tall ish.
Right, Right. That would freak you out. I mean, ghosts, things like that go bump in the night, I'm good with those. But something like that would be interesting. And something like 20% of the ocean has, I know, right? Mad Max, there's so much to the ocean that has not been explored. They're finding new species all the time from the depths because we can't get down. We don't have the capability of going that low without implosion, right?
I mean, that also kind of ties into some people believe like the Middle Earth theory, like essentially that there's a whole other existence like below us, and that the ocean is like an access to that, or there's like portals or other dimension type like pathways or gates like to get to those type of like areas, but it's within our own Earth.
I think the whole inside of the Earth is just magma, and you know what I'm saying? It's just so much pressure that it's so super heated. I don't know. Maybe there's something below that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting to think about. Kind of makes you want to like look into like the current like depths of like, because humans mess with everything. They meddle with everything. People drill for precious metals. They drill for oil. How far have they gotten? What's the deepest they've gone? And then
I think the deepest well is in Antarctic. No, it's in the Arctic or Antarctic now. Okay, it was in Russia, so is that the Arctic, right?
Yes.
Yes, and so the deepest well is up there.
Okay.
Because there's people who have gone up there. It's uncapped, so it's an uncapped well, and it's the deepest well ever, borehole ever drilled. And people hear voices coming from it, they believe, which is that's freaky. I think it's just noises from the earth. But because we've gone to houses where people are convinced there's something going on in the bathroom, like paranormal, and it's their drain making noises, and it sounds like whispers and whatnot. It's plumbing.
Yeah. Well, I found a lot of videos that like have like siren sounds, and it sounds like I don't hear words. Like there was one where like it sounded like words, but if you've ever been near the ocean where there's a lot of rocky formations, reefs, cave areas that are like kind of up and down with the tide, like you hear the water and the wind pass through those areas and you don't know. It may sound like a whale cry, and you don't know for sure. That's like the hardest part about being an enthusiast of the paranormal or the cryptid is not knowing. Like we can make as many theories as we want to, and we can do as much research as we want to. And Max, that's a good.
Yeah, and
That's
I heard that, and I've read that too, but I don't know how much of this, what you read about this, is true. That
right.
if
Well,
it's the deepest borehole ever drilled, do we have the technology to go that deep?
hmm
That's what I'm saying. Like a microphone wire that deep.
right,
It's
and like
not.
microphones, they do make noise, like not as like always as audible as we can hear, but
Mhm.
in essentially what's a miles and miles long tunnel, it could be a reverberation off of the tunnel walls. Uh, but I mean, I would be interested to hear like a recording and see if you can hear specific words, or like
I've
even if
never
it's
heard of
not
these.
English.
That's the thing. It's
Right.
I don't know. So that's I've heard the same thing, Mad Max, and I don't know. My dad always used to say, believe not half of what you read and none of what you're told. So you know what I'm saying? I just never, yeah, I have a
Yeah.
hard time with some of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna make a note actually. Like I'm gonna look up and see like if they do have the recordings, if they have those recordings, see if I can like associate it with something I already know, and if not, I can research into it and kind of maybe
Yep.
figure out a little something, something, you know?
Yeah. That would be interesting. I don't think they've ever. I've heard that they've had recordings and they've heard screamings, but I don't think that. Yeah. If you can find them,
Right.
I'd be fascinated to hear them.
And like that's the one thing about the internet is really you can do so much research and it's such a vast well of information. But how much of it do you know 100% is authentic without experiencing it for yourself?
And
That's
now
all.
with AI is just everywhere, and you don't know what to. Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. Before it was Photoshop, right? We're like, yeah, that's been Photoshopped, you know. But now it's
Right.
AI, and it's like, gosh, it looks so real, but there's usually a small tell with AI. Like I do a
Yeah.
lot of AI photos for our short videos on our page here,
Yeah.
and I'll say something like, make a dog jumping up on a guy because there's a story about a dog. And so it does, and it has like this gaping mouth with no teeth. And so, I mean, AI never gets it. And then I'm like, no, make the dog with teeth jumping up. It's like, and then you do, and he's got like 10 toes, you know, and it's like, oh
hmm
God, there's always something wrong with AI.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. So I've like tried to like make 3D models because like I'm working on like a 3D model for like something totally unrelated to my car. But like I love Sasquatch. I like was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna save a 3D like file of like Sasquatch. So eventually when I have a 3D printer, I can make a little Sasquatch. And there was not like a single cute thing. I was like, cute, stubby, chubby Sasquatch. And like there wasn't a single one that didn't like make very deep nails. Like
Oh,
what, like it was like the focal point of the whole. I'm like, why AI, please stop. Like just cover it with hair, I don't care, but it's weird.
that's funny. I never thought about that.
Like
Oh
I
my
mean, you
God.
know, it's fine, it's all natural, but like damn, like I wanted
I
something
don't want it
cute
hanging
and
out on my
like
shelf.
right, I know I don't want to like have this adorable Sasquatch with like, you know, a
Yeah.
couple of, you know what I mean.
Oh my God.
Anyway, tangent aside here. Where are we? Oh yeah, we were talking about mermaids.
Yeah,
Um,
mermaids.
we went on a whole other tangent, which is
Yeah,
great. I
I
love it.
know.
Um, so I only have like a couple things left on Sirens, but like they have one other story that's like tied with like Jamaica, Caribbean culture, and then real quick I'll go over a different yeah, hilarious.
Mm.
um
Oh, but
there's
Mad
like,
Max did bring up it's 7.6 miles deep.
oh, cola. K-O-L-A. Not like the Midwestern cola.
David said, always so much information and fun.
Random tidbits.
I mean, who knew?
I got ADHD real bad, so there's a lot of random crap in my phone in my house. Like, it's whack in here. Yeah.
For those of you joining late, Susie and Gina are ill, and so we're going through without them. The show must go on.
The show has to. So we're covering just a topic. We're talking about sirens. We're talking about mermaids. Some lore, some history, some stuff, some stories. But actually, William Shakespeare referenced sirens as well. I do have a direct quote from him. This is like a different type of culture, but it's more like tied to, like, not sub but par medieval culture, you know. But he says, "Thou'st rememberest since once I sat upon a promontory, and I heard a mermaid on a dolphin's back uttering such dulcet and harmonious breath that the rude sea grew civil at her song, and certain stars shot madly from their spheres to hear the sea maid's music." So that's like a positive rendition.
Yeah.
That's about the time of like pirates. And so if sirens, siren type beings, malevolent type beings that are luring and drowning men in the ocean, this is kind of an interesting take on that at the time. Right? Beautiful. Shakespeare's always beautiful. Love Shakespeare. But it's almost as if they try to take, it's a lot of times like you see it in culture nowadays, you see it in culture back then, where they take something that's essentially feared and they turn it into something beautiful, harmonious, positive, because people don't like fear. They don't enjoy being fearful. And so they use that as like a scapegoat. And this is about the time where, in this timeline, where piracy was very prominent in this timeline, they started to tie mermaids, sirens into a more positive note. It wasn't so much about the lessons, it was about a dream, essentially.
Yeah. Well, think about too the time frame of like piracy and all of this stuff going on. You had religion, which was controlled by fear back then.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was fearful. You feared the kings. You feared wars. You feared plagues. You feared death by starvation. You feared there was never the land of plenty, right?
Right.
There was not abundance. There was not a lot of happiness. So if anything could give them some positivity, I could see them spinning it that way to have something to hold on to.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of playwrights and musicians in this time, I feel like, did gear a lot towards the positive, to joy. Because you're right, like during the bubonic plague, during times where people were impoverished, people were starving in the streets, there are a lot of times where things that were considered dark are turned into a positive. That's also a time where you could consider religion being a very dark, do or else, type of scene, was started to turn into more celestial and more positive and more comforting type of environment. It was very along like the same timeline, whether or not you consider that to be 50 years or 100 or 200 years. It very much started off as like a sort of fear mongering and transformed into positive.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thought to have. If you think about, I mean, we mentioned the Illuminati earlier, but there's always someone or some body that wants to elicit control over a people, whether or not that's part of an organization, like a singular person or group of people. But so many of these stories and like theories or lessons come from a place of attempted control. And that's
yeah. So there was the dark and the light to the mermaids, because there was also stories. There's the stories that they lured sailors to their death and
Mhm.
onto the rocks, and there's also stories where they actually swam drowning victims back to shore.
Yes. So there's that same kind of like parallel between like
Yep.
light and dark. There's
Hmm.
we've seen multiple stories, multiple legends, and specifically cryptids where it's a black and white, one or the other. They're evil or they're good. But if you think of like humanity in general, there are people that are both. There's some people that are distinctly one or the other. It just kind of, and some, most people sit somewhere in the middle, you know?
Yeah.
Like you believe what you believe, and most people have like some inherent sense of good, but also some people suck, you know? It's kind of,
Yep.
it doesn't mean that every cryptid, every creature is going to be exactly the same. Doesn't mean they're all going to be evil or they're all going to be good. But I mean, what Max said, so I did hear a couple of things where sirens slash mermaids, one or the same, would specifically try to lure captains because captains are going to tell you where the ship steers, you know,
Mhm.
and they would lure them into rocks or they would lure them into an area where they were going to be vulnerable and then be able to take the whole ship. So that is right on track with the siren stories.
Wouldn't it be interesting if they had the capability of reading the soul of the people that they were dealing with, and they lured the dark souls to their death and saved the light souls? I mean,
Mhm.
who's to know that they didn't know, that they don't know some
Right?
innate knowledge that they have about who they're dealing with? And maybe the ships that they lured to their death were pirates who were nefarious people up to no good and killing others. And I don't know.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And they were like saving the innocents.
right.
Uh, yeah, it's very interesting to think. But like, there's also like, there's so many references that like refer to these beings or something so similar to these beings as like being ethereal or godlike. And I mean, if you think of like, I mean, the main one I know about specifically is Christianity. There's a whole book, there's multiple books of beautiful, benevolent things that this God has done, and also horrific, horrible things that this God has done. And so, if you think of these different creatures, these different cryptids as gods, there's going to be completely opposite sides of the scale, whether or not it's doing a kindness or doing something to save an innocent or doing complete harm. It's it could be either, or it could be both.
Yeah, David brings up a really good point. In every pirate movie he's seen, the sirens would not kill the missionaries because they were not there to, well, they were not there to death and destruction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So pretty interesting. I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know. Because they did, there are stories of plenty of people they've rescued.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And I mean, you know, the stories about children being taken or the warnings of children being taken, it could just be stories to teach
I don't know.
children. Or, I mean, you never know. And that's, you know, we kind of talked about it already. It's the struggle of being invested and interested in the paranormal and the cryptid is you can do as much research as you possibly can into every religion and every culture and every contemporary account and historical account. And the only way to know is to experience it for yourself. And you may never get that chance.
Yeah, and I think there's a port, I want to say it's in Washington, northern Washington, with a mermaid, a big, huge mermaid statue up there. That
I've
it,
seen a couple. Yeah.
yeah, and there, and well, and it's not Starbucks, but I'm talking about a big statue that's been out there for eons. That people, because it was really a part of the lore of the town, and you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying. That it's, and I think on the East Coast too. Yeah, like it's a very accepted part of oceaneering. That
It really
and
is.
oceaneering has, anything maritime has an incredible amount of superstition to it.
Right. Well,
Hmm.
it's like I've only mentioned like a couple different or like a few different like cultures that have like a siren type creature. Like, of course, there's the Greeks. They have like mostly they reference sirens as like a winged type creature. Although I've heard like one other that specifically says it's like tied to an ocean god. There's also Egyptian sirens that I hadn't
Mm.
put it in my notes today because they're connected directly to the Nile and not the ocean. This is an oceanic series, semantics. But it essentially did the same thing. It would lure people into the Nile and drown them or take them to the spirit realm. So there's so many stories across multiple cultures. There's also one specific to Russia.
Really?
Mhm. I have to find it. Oh yeah, let's see. Oh no, I have the deep pit note, but I know I for sure have it. One of my notes. I'll have to find it, and then I'll do a little tidbit on it next week. But this person, she did like a verbal accounting, and I wasn't able to dictate like everything that she had said, but she had told a story, and it does have a specific name as well. So I will make sure to write that down and mention it, do a little tidbit about it before I go into my next topic next week. But there's one specific to Russia, and I thought that was interesting because that's a whole other plane of the world that you generally didn't hear about it.
Well, they didn't have really a news. They didn't really, yeah, they didn't allow a lot of outside, influences, and they didn't allow a lot of news to get out. And I mean, everything in Russia seems bigger and badder, right? Their grizzlies
Mhm.
are a lot, because remember the Bering Strait, right? So we had a lot of species interactions going on there, and they have grizzlies in Russia, and they're more predacious, and they attack more people, and their wolves are bigger. I mean, everything in Russia is just like, oh my God.
Well, I mean, the Bering Strait, like that's a whole other like connection between cultures. So,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of theories like so if you think about so weird little tangent, 23andMe, genetic testing and all that. My
Did you do
husband
that?
and I, oh yeah, my husband and I
Oh,
did it
cool.
before we got married, because we wanted kids. We knew we wanted kids, and my mom's adopted, so we had to make sure we weren't related.
You look so much alike.
I know we're basically twins, but you never know.
Oh, that's
So we
pretty
did
funny.
that. We did it
That's
before we
cool.
got married. And I know my dad. My dad was born in Costa Rica. My mom is, born in the US. She has red hair. I know. We probably look so alike. No, she has red hair, blue eyes. Um, and she was adopted, so we didn't know much about like her past. I actually ended up finding her biological father through the app, which was a whole other story. Super wild, very fun, all positive. Um, but it showed that I had like East Asian like ancestry, uh, which I was like, oh, but if you think about the Bering Strait, because Costa Ricans are 50% Native American, which is where my father's from.
Yeah.
Little sister, mom, and uncle, dad.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's pretty funny right there. I don't care who you are.
Oh, well, thank God we're not from Alabama.
I know,
No
right?
offense.
No offense.
Ding, 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 ding. Imagine the banjo music.
Oh,
Yeah, we're not related. Just, a little tidbit. I don't know if I mentioned that before. We are completely unrelated. Um, but yeah, no, the Bering Sea is interesting because y'all are just wild in the comments.
Uncle
Uncle
Daddy.
Daddy cousin.
Oh my God. You guys, knock it off.
Oh my gosh. This is the best. This is a great show. Y'all keep going. This is wonderful.
Oh, Lordy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're from the West, anyways. We have standards. Just kidding. Just kidding. It's all a joke. But anyway, most Hispanics, I'm Hispanic, I'm Latina, are some sort of mix of Spaniard and indigenous. And most indigenous cultures have tied to East Asians from
Okay.
specifically the Bering Strait. So
Interesting.
that does make sense, because also like some stories, some lore, some legends would cross over as well, because there is some relation between the two.
Yeah.
It's very distant, but
Husband.
I think there should be a D on the end of that, husband.
That's awesome, Ramona. Oh my God, you guys are killing me here, man.
Oh, that's great. That needs to be on a t-shirt, honestly, husband.
Husband.
Like,
Holy
the R's are
moly.
just a little too far apart. Just a little bit.
That's pretty good. Oh my
Okay.
God.
All right. I'm going to take us away from the banjo music and the swamps.
We can get deplatformed here.
Let's like circle back to our original topic. Just a little bit. I only have one
coming in. Hold on. For those of you coming in late, Gina and Susie are ill, so we're plowing through the show on these great topics of husbands. So
yeah, plowing through the show and not through our cousins. I just need a shirt that says, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry for the things that I say. I have no filter. Apologies.
Good.
Okay, we're moving on. I have one more siren story. We're actually talking about sirens and mermaids and the lore associated.
Yes.
This was a great tangent. That was the best. Anyways, okay, I have one more little story. And then we can talk about whatever we want. So this is a Jamaican one. So someone was in Montego Bay, Jamaica, which is, also, Max, I swear to God.
Awkward. Pac-Man, you know us well enough by now, dude.
We like to have a good time, but not with people we're familiarly related to. All right. Okay. Last story, Jamaica. So this person was in Montego, Jamaica. And so from their standpoint, they say I was sitting on the beach alone during a silent lightning storm. So I don't know if anyone in the comments or Colleen, you've ever like been or lived near a beach or near the ocean.
Yep.
Silent lightning storms are wild. Like it's intense, the flashes, and like you may not hear anything because the light travels across the water so far and it seems so intense even though you're a couple miles like away from the ocean and this light is so bright. It's a silent storm because the light travels so far. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna keep going here and pretend I didn't read the comments. JK. But anyway, like it's intense but silent. So this was a silent storm at night, essentially. Suddenly I felt this intense urge to run into the water. Mind you, I don't swim. This person does not know how to swim. After a while, the urge intensified and I stupidly went to put my feet in the water. I remember the water was bubbling and it was pitch black, and I immediately felt this sense of dread and danger and ran out of the water. After getting out, I went back to sit down on my folding chair, and out of a bolt of lightning lit up the sky and the sea, and I saw a big black figure with long hair, not too far away from me, staring at me from the water. After the lightning was gone, the figure was nowhere to be found. I sat out there for a half an hour after trying to figure out what the figure I saw was, but it never appeared again. I really believed it was a mermaid trying to take me into the sea.
Wow.
So something I've noticed is a distinct difference between the positive lore of mermaids and the like terrifying like lore of sirens is their physical description. So many people consider sirens, like, for lack of a better word, ugly, unappealing, not human-esque. Like human-esque, but like pale skin, stringy, oily hair, or hair like seaweed. They describe them more as like a terrifying creature that's kind of sort of human than a beautiful, alluring woman or creature. It's still interesting to me that these creatures can be horrifying but still have like that alluring presence. People seem to still say that they are being drawn to this present, whether or not it looks beautiful. So that's interesting. And I mean, the ties to voodoo and the ties to magic kind of almost make you think that it has some ethereal or mystical like presence in some of these cultures.
It's always fascinating. We brought it up so many times, and we've talked about it so many times, but like how how many cultures for eons have exactly the same legend? They may call it something different, but the description's the same. Whether it's, you know what I mean, and a lot of time, I mean, I'm talking about before trade, before the ships were really, before Columbus and before they were really venturing out and starting to open trade channels.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that, and my belief has always been that in every legend there is a kernel of truth. There's something there. Something was really going on. And that modern one with the diver who saw what he saw.
Yeah, it ties right into Ramona with what was saying, like how it has a spine that is like essentially poking out like an exposed spine. It's skeletal. That's a great word for it.
Yeah, that's it's Pac-Man. Long black hair equals evil. Got it.
It's like The Grudge.
Oh yeah,
7 days.
God, there's so many people that watched that movie were so freaked out.
I've actually never seen it. I was just horrified by the scary movie version of it when I was a child. So take that as you will. I am a huge wuss.
Yeah, I do think it would be really interesting. It would be super interesting if we could find news articles of people who have reported this kind of stuff.
Right.
That's not just overblown and hype, but something that they reported to a reporter and then said, I had this experience, because it's, yeah.
There was like something, and it did become like popular in the media, and it was a reporter, researcher of some type, and it was a recording or in some type of submarine. I don't know if anyone's seen it, if you've seen it, but like you see like a webbed hand like smack against the glass, and like you see like a bit of a tail. And this was maybe 15 years ago. Oh, so Max
really
had a buddy that was an underwater welder in the Gulf. He said he saw some wild stuff.
That would be really interesting to talk to him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so
do you think a webbed hand could be a turtle?
It was like you can see it, and like I don't know, like this thing's like 15 years old ish, like give or take a few years. I am not 100% sure. I do remember when it came out initially, vaguely, but I do have ADHD, so things just kind of meld together.
I mean, I'm always trying to look for the plausible, rational explanation of stuff, and you know, turtle and alligators and things like that. They have webbed.
Yeah, and honestly, alligator hand is similar. It looks more like a feminine hand. Maybe the fingers were a little bit longer, but it was webbed very much like an alligator.
Yeah.
But these people, yeah, squirrel, 1,000%. It's a problem. But yeah, I mean, if you've seen an alligator hand, you can see like the distinctive lines, you know, and it's very scaly. I mean, it's more scaly on the other side, but
on the back side, yeah.
On the palm side, you know, the texture is gonna be different, but you can see all the lines in it. But you don't know. Like it's like we were talking about earlier. Like it was Photoshop back then. Maybe it was Photoshop back then. Maybe it was early AI, or maybe it was real. I don't think so, but it'd be cool to see something, like to actually see and experience something. That's like that's why I love when I do my research, I do try to find individuals that are willing to tell their stories, individuals that have the firsthand accounts. And I love to share those because whether or not it is actually happened or whether it's like their perception, it's interesting to hear someone talking about what they experienced, whether or not it ended up being some random sea creature or this person that saw what they thought was a mermaid, but initially thought was like a corpse, could have been a corpse. Sorry. But hearing their firsthand accountings and hearing how they tried to rationalize it and that it ended up being not the rational thought.
Yeah.
That's why I like to reference those in my personal research, just because people usually think like you and I think. They usually try to rationalize something because that's how people feel safe. That's how people feel protected when they rationalize something.
Yeah, definitely. Super interesting topic. I love it, McKenna. And again, for those of you hoping for a reading tonight, I'm very sorry that both the ladies were sick. They didn't want to be sick, so it's not like they wanted this to happen. I talked to Susie, and she sounded like she smoked 6 packs of cigarettes a day for the last 50 years. It was like, more things. She's just feels so bad. She's so this voice, and and then Celeste got stung. Yeah, and her poor face. We all saw her face, the pictures, and
yeah, she sent us a picture. So owie. It looks so owie. I feel so bad.
I think it stung her like several times before. Like there's, well, I think it was on this side, and there was like you could see a whole bunch of, it was bad. It was really bad.
Traveling. It was like traveling.
Yeah, and I think it was right before she had to do a wedding, so it was just not good. So anyway,
we love our ladies.
Our love to all you guys for hanging in there with us, and we had a lot of fun with you guys tonight. And and just to all of our viewers and everybody who's interacting with us, you got us to a milestone on YouTube that I didn't think we'd get there for actually another year, because we came onto this show. We came back to this channel that I had made years ago that I was never active on. And in March, and you got us there in August, and I can't believe it. It's just amazing. So our hearts go out to you guys. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Make sure if you're new, subscribe, and we have content that's going to be coming at you that's going to start blowing your mind. We've got everybody's going to be stepping up and making content now, so it's great. But anyway, you guys have an outstanding week. We're live tomorrow with UFO stuff. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be an interesting show. So UFOs and UFO stories and weirdness, facilities and stuff like that. So anyway, hang with us tomorrow at 7, and you guys be safe out there. Love ya.